I never thought I'd learn how to breathe freedom, until every breath turned into the scream of a chase. The city at night is a predator of its own kind. Neon veins, steel bones, shadows that swallow and spit me back out. My shoes slap against the wet pavement, rhythm matching the staccato beat of my heart. The world narrows to sound and scent, every instinct sharpened until it cuts. That's what they gave me back when I was still theirs. Instincts honed too sharp, reflexes tuned past human. I wasn't born to be prey, but they made me into something between prey and predator. And now I run, not because I'm weak, but because running is the only way I still feel alive. Behind me, boots thunder. Heavy, disciplined, trained, not the panicked scramble of rent-a-cops. No, this one is different. Calculated, patient, relentless. Him. I vault over a low fence, lungs burning in the chill air, and land light, too light for an omega. They never expected that when they made me. They never expected someone like me would slip out of their cages. My scent is buried deep, suppressed and masked, like smoke in the wind. No alpha should be able to track me. No one should. And yet, I can feel him there. At the corner of a glass building, I dare a glance back. For one split second, between the floodlights and the shadows, our eyes lock. His, cold steel blue, focused like the barrel of a rifle. Mine, wild, taunting, defiant. He doesn't shout, doesn't break stride. He just knows he'll catch me. Arrogant bastard. I duck into an alley, tearing past dumpsters and stray cats. The smell of oil and rain coats my throat. My mind calculates exits automatically. Fire escape to the left, service door chained shut, open rooftop 2 stories up. My muscles coil and I jump, fingers catching the iron ladder. I pull myself up, 2 steps at a time, until I'm on the roof, the city sprawling beneath me like a glittering battlefield. I grin despite myself, the adrenaline crackling in my blood. Try and follow this, soldier boy. The earpiece hidden in my jacket hums to life. My voice carries through the night, a whisper of static laced with mockery. You're 1 step behind again, predator. A pause. His voice answers, low and steady, the kind that doesn't need to raise volume to be a threat. That won't last. Your lungs will give out before mine do. I laugh, breathless but sharp. Cute faith in cardio. Shame instincts don't wear out as fast. I sprint across the rooftop, the tar and gravel crunching under my soles. Lights from traffic smear like molten veins below me. Every leap from one building to the next vibrates through my body. A rush of fear and exhilaration. For a moment, I almost believe I've escaped. Almost, because I know the truth. I feel him closing the distance, even when I can't hear his steps. Like a wolf shadowing a deer, patient, saving his strength. He isn't chasing out of panic. He's hurting me, and that makes me furious. I skid to a halt at the edge of a rooftop, chest heaving. The gap to the next building yawns wider than I'd like, but it's doable. For me, not for anyone else. I turn my head, and there he is, Dane. Even from here, I see the cut of his jaw under the dim light, the way his shoulders square as if the whole world were just another battlefield. He's taller than memory painted him, broader, too solid to be real. And yet he moves like he's part of the night itself. Our eyes meet again, and the city stills. It's just us. Prey that isn't prey. Hunter that isn't hunting. My lips curl in a smile I don't feel. Catch me if you can. Then I leap, the wind ripping the words from my mouth. For a heartbeat, the world tilts. Freedom, gravity, danger. All one tangled thread. My feet slam onto the other side, knees bending to absorb the impact. I'm alive, free, still running. But as I straighten, I hear the scrape of boots behind me. He's already crossed. He's not supposed to keep up. Not with me. Not with what I am. I force myself forward again, lungs burning like they're filled with fire. Every part of me screams to stop, but stopping is death. Stopping is going back in the cage. And yet, under the fury, under the fear, a thought worms its way in, unwanted and undeniable. He's the only one who's ever been this close. The door shuts behind me with a hollow click, and silence drapes itself over the room like a blanket. My safe house, bare walls, secondhand furniture, the faint hum of the server rack in the corner. Nothing warm, nothing permanent, just enough to live another day. I drop onto the couch, sweat cooling on my skin, adrenaline still buzzing in my veins. My lungs ache, but it isn't fear, not anymore. If it were fear, I would have stayed in their cage. No, this is the game. I run because it makes me feel alive, because every chase is a reminder that I outsmarted them again. That I outsmarted him. The laptop screen glows faintly as I open a secure line. Static, then a familiar voice laced with dry sarcasm. Lost him again? Nora's face flickers onto the screen. Dark hair in a messy bun, glasses sliding down her nose, eyes sharp with exhaustion and caffeine. He's persistent, I mutter, stretching my legs out, like a dog with a bone. She smirks, more like a wolf, with a GPS tracker. You're the bone. Thanks for the confidence boost. I tilt my head, allowing the corners of my mouth to twitch into a grin. Still, he hasn't caught me. That's a point on my side. Nora leans closer to her camera, lowering her voice. Kyle, this isn't sustainable. You're making it a game, but they're playing for keeps. You slip once, even a little. I know. The grin fades. I rub my thumb over the scar that slices across my wrist, a reminder of shackles. But if I let this turn into fear, I lose. So I make it into something else. A race, a challenge. Her eyes soften. For all her barbed humor, Nora's the only one who ever looked at me and saw more than an experiment. Just don't forget, wolves don't play with their prey. They consume it. I chuckle, but the sound is thin. Then I'll just have to keep being the exception. The screen goes dark as I cut the line. Far across the city, glass towers rise like silent guardians, each office window a lit square against the night. Inside one of them, the briefing room smells of disinfectant and leather. Dane stands like a statue, arms crossed, jaw set. His eyes fix on the projection screen, my face, frozen mid-sprint from the last surveillance capture. The director's voice drones on, clinical and detached. Target must be retrieved alive. Unharmed. He represents significant investment. You are authorized to use force only if necessary. And remember, the pause is deliberate, heavy. Do not get personally involved. There it is. The unspoken rule made spoken. Don't fall for him. Dane doesn't flinch, but something shifts behind his gaze. He's not blind. He's seen the way I move, the way I think 3 steps ahead. Not prey, not experiment. Something in between. Too human to cage. Too dangerous to set free. The briefing ends, and the room empties. Dane stays behind, staring at the frozen image of me on the screen. My smirk, caught in pixels, seems to mock him even here. He exhales slowly, the sound closer to a growl than a sigh. You're making this difficult, Kyle. Back in my safe house, I stretch across the couch, eyes tracing the cracks in the ceiling. My heart finally steadies, though my mind does not. Rules. I need rules, or I'll lose myself. Rule 1. Don't run from fear. Run for freedom. Rule 2. Never underestimate the predator. Rule 3. Never, ever let him close enough to touch. My lips twitch into a grin, even though no one's here to hear it. This isn't survival, I whisper to the empty room. This is a duel, and for the first time, I wonder which of us is enjoying it more. The lobby was too bright, too clean. Polished marble floors reflected fluorescent light in a way that made me feel exposed. I'd slipped past the cameras, ducked the security guards, and blended with the late-night office crowd just long enough to make it to the elevator. The doors slid open with a cheerful chime. I stepped inside, pressed the button for the roof, and leaned back against the cool metal wall. My pulse still raced, but the silence felt like victory. Finally, I'd shaken him. The doors began to close, and then a boot caught them, forcing them apart. I froze. He stepped in with the kind of measured calm that made my skin prickle. Dane. The elevator sealed us together with a heavy thunk. No more alleys, no rooftops, no escape routes. Just 4 steel walls, stale air, and him. For a moment the world narrowed to breath and scent. Mine, suppressed, hidden, carefully layered to confuse. His, clean, sharp, the faint trace of leather and soap. The air thickened with the tension between us. I edged back into the corner, though not out of fear. Instinct, maybe. Or pride. My hands curled into fists against the rail. He didn't move closer. He just stood there, watching me with those cold blue eyes. Shoulders relaxed like he had all the time in the world. My chest rose and fell too fast, traitor lungs betraying how close he'd come to winning. I licked my lips, let a grin tilt across my face. If I couldn't outrun him here, I could at least unnerve him. "If you want to take me," I whispered, voice low enough to hum against the silence. "Do it. But you'll only have to chase me all over again." The words landed between us like sparks on dry kindling. His gaze didn't flicker, though his jaw tightened. He inhaled once, steady, as though anchoring himself. Then his reply came, smooth and quiet, almost respectful. "You have a talent for making things difficult." The floor numbers glowed red as the elevator climbed. Every second stretched long, vibrating with the sound of our breathing. I could feel the heat of him, the weight of his presence pressing into me without a single touch. My heart hammered, not from the chase, but from the awareness of being cornered, of being seen, the hunter and the experiment, the soldier and the runaway. Two people sharing a space too small for either of our egos. I tilted my head, forcing another smirk. "Complicated's more fun than easy, don't you think?" His lips curved, just barely, almost hidden. Not a smile. Not yet. "We'll see." The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. Cool air rushed in, breaking the spell. I slipped out first, every nerve screaming at me to run, though my legs felt heavier than they should. He didn't follow immediately. He just stood in the threshold, watching me with the kind of patience that said he didn't need to chase right now. He already knew I'd be his again soon enough. And maybe that was the most dangerous part. I almost believed him. The cafe sat on the corner of a quiet street, its chipped awning flapping softly in the wind. Not the kind of place anyone from the glass towers would notice. That's why I liked it. I slid into a chair at one of the outdoor tables, pulling my hood low as steam curled up from the mug in my hands. The coffee was too bitter, the cup too small, but it was the first real pause I'd had in days. My body still thrummed with leftover adrenaline from the elevator. Too close. Too damned close. But here, with the clatter of dishes inside and the faint hiss of the espresso machine, I could almost pretend I was just another insomniac keeping company with the night. Almost. A shadow fell over my table. I glanced up and found her there, the cafe's owner. She was small and wiry, hair like white cotton spun into a bun, eyes that missed nothing. I'd seen her every night I came here. She never asked questions. She just served coffee and occasionally fussed about the weather. Tonight, though, her lips curved into a smile far too knowing. "Back again," she said, setting down a plate with a biscotti I hadn't ordered. "And I suppose the tall one will be by soon, too." My chest tightened. I forced a shrug. "Tall one?" She chuckled, the sound dry as autumn leaves. "Don't play coy, dear. The handsome soldier type. Always coming after you. I've got eyes, even if they're old. He passes by not long after you do. Every time, I nearly choked on my coffee." "He's not." But she waved a hand, dismissing my words like smoke. "Don't bother denying it. Men don't chase like that unless it's for love. I've lived long enough to know." For a second, the city seemed to still around us. Love. The word dropped into my chest like a stone into deep water, rippling through places I didn't want disturbed. I managed a laugh, though it scraped in my throat. "Lady, if that's love, then you've got a dark sense of romance." She gave me a look that was equal parts amusement and certainty. Romance isn't always roses and chocolates. Sometimes it's fire. Sometimes it's running until your lungs burn. But it's always obvious when two people are tangled in it. My fingers tightened around the mug. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that this was just a hunt, just survival. But the words stuck, because even as I sat there, I could still feel the echo of his presence in that elevator, his steady gaze that had seen too much. I swallowed hard, forcing a smirk I didn't feel. If he's in love with anyone, it's the chase itself. And I'm just his favorite track meet. The old woman only smiled wider, The kind of smile that came from being absolutely certain. "We'll see, dear. We'll see." When she finally left me alone, the coffee had gone cold in my hands, and I realized my pulse hadn't slowed once. The hotel room smelled faintly of bleach and stale perfume, the kind of place businessmen rented for one night and forgot by morning. Perfect. Forgettable walls, forgettable carpet, the kind of anonymity I craved. Except tonight, the room wasn't meant for sleeping. I moved fast, methodical, wire stretched low across the entryway, just high enough to trip a careless stride. A camera hidden in the air vent, streaming straight to my phone. Pressure sensors beneath the rug by the window. Crude, maybe, but enough to buy me a second or two. And in this game, a second meant everything. By the time I finished, the city glittered beyond the glass like it had been poured from a cracked bottle of stars. I leaned against the sill, catching my breath. He'd come, he always came. And when he did, he'd see I wasn't prey waiting to be cornered. I wanted him to see it, to know it. The first snap echoed sharp through the silence. My tripwire, broken clean. My lips curved. The second trigger blinked red on my phone. Then went dark. He'd found the vent camera. Disabled. Then the softest creak of the rug by the window, pressure sensor useless. One by one, my traps collapsed. Not with noise, not with chaos. With precision. With patience. Of course, Dane wasn't the type to blunder into snares. He was the type to dismantle them like puzzles, brick by brick, until I was the one cornered. The door opened, and he stepped inside without hurry, like he belonged there. Tall, steady, calm, not even breathing hard, as though the chase was something he'd already won. I didn't move from the window, my arms crossed, the city lights painting me in gold and shadow. "You're supposed to be bleeding by now," I said. His eyes swept the room, lingering for a fraction on each failed trap, before settling on me. "You're supposed to be gone by now." My chest tightened, but I forced a grin. Guess we both like breaking expectations. For a moment, neither of us spoke, just the hum of the city below, the quiet stretch of tension between predator and quarry. But was that what we still were? Finally, I broke the silence, my voice low. "I thought you'd break me." He didn't flinch, didn't look away. His reply was simple, heavy. "And I thought I'd hold you." The words landed harder than any blow. Something inside me stuttered, unsteady. I turned back to the window, staring at the blur of headlights far below. If I jumped, if I ran, I could vanish again. That was the plan. That was always the plan. But my feet stayed planted. My hands clenched against the sill. Behind me, he didn't advance, didn't press. He just stood there, quiet, certain, as if giving me a choice. The silence stretched until it hurt. Then I pushed away from the window, shoving my hood up. "Don't get comfortable, soldier. This isn't over." I brushed past him, close enough to feel the heat of his body but careful not to touch. The hallway beyond the door swallowed me, but the echo of his words followed, refusing to let go. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if running was winning anymore. The training floor reeked of sweat and rubber mats. Men shouted, weights clanged, and the sharp snap of sparring gloves echoed off the concrete walls. It wasn't a place for jokes, at least, not for anyone but Mark. He lounged against the railing, a protein bar in one hand, his ever-present grin tugging at his mouth like he knew something no one else did. His blonde hair was cropped short, his uniform half-buttoned, like discipline was just a suggestion. Dane ignored him at first, focused on the heavy bag swinging beneath his fists. Thud, thud. Each punch landed with enough force to rattle the chain, though his expression never shifted. Controlled power, nothing wasted. Mark took a bite of the bar, chewed loudly, then spoke around it. "So, how's your little courtship going?" The bag stilled. Dane turned, brows drawn low. "What?" Mark's grin widened. "You know, the one-man marathon you've been running after that Omega, except it's starting to look less like an assignment and more like courting rituals." Dane's eyes narrowed, sharp as a knife edge. "This isn't a game, Mark." "Oh, I don't know." Mark gestured loosely with the wrapper. From where I'm standing, it looks exactly like one. Chase, tension, stolen glances. If you didn't tell me he was a fugitive, I'd think you were trying to propose. The jab hit harder than he expected. For a flicker of a moment, Dane's jaw tightened. His silence spoke more than words. Mark noticed. He always noticed. "Don't tell me," he said, voice softening just slightly. "You actually like him." Dane exhaled slowly, forcing control back into his face, his posture. "I don't like targets." Mark leaned in, the grin curving into something almost bittersweet. "Then maybe I do. From the way you describe him? Smart, fast, impossible to pin down. I think I'd fall for him too." Dane shot him a sharp look. It should have been enough to silence anyone else. But Mark only shrugged, tossing the empty wrapper into the bin with casual precision. "Relax, he's yours." Everyone can see that. The words lodged somewhere Dane didn't want to examine. His, was that what people thought? What he was starting to think? He returned to the heavy bag, striking harder this time, letting the rhythm drown out the questions. Thud, thud. But in the back of his mind, no matter how hard he tried to bury it, the image remained, Kyle at the window, lit by the city, defiant and unbroken, and Dane's own voice, echoing back at him. "I thought I'd hold you." Mark's smirk lingered like a shadow. The warehouse loomed like a carcass at the edge of the docks, all rusted beams and shattered windows. Perfect ground for ghosts, and for the kind of hunt neither of us could afford to lose. I slipped through the broken doorway, boots silent on the dust-strewn floor. The air smelled of mildew and iron, the kind of damp that clung to your lungs. Shadows stretched long between the skeletal racks, every creak of the building echoing like a gunshot. He was behind me. I felt it more than heard it, an instinct honed too sharp to ignore. Dane didn't chase like the others. He stalked, measured, patient. He wanted me cornered. Not tonight. I darted left, weaving between crates. A sharp crack split the air, gunfire, not his, not mine. My body jerked sideways as a bullet sparked off metal inches from my shoulder. Corporate cleanup. They'd sent others. Panic rippled through me. Not for myself, but for the sudden change in rules. This wasn't the game anymore. This was extermination. Chaos erupted. Shouts bounced off the walls. Muzzles flashed, the smell of gunpowder thickening the air. I dove behind a rusted beam, heart hammering. My head snapped toward the noise, and there he was. Dane, moving through the crossfire like he owned the ground. He fired back, precise, controlled. But there were too many. Then it happened. A sharp cry, muffled through clenched teeth, as his body jerked with the impact. He staggered, hand clamping his side. Blood bloomed dark across his shirt. For one fractured second, the world tilted. I should have run. The exit was there, half hidden by broken pallets, a path clear enough for me to vanish into the night. My instincts screamed it. Run. Leave him. Live. But my legs betrayed me. I bolted toward him instead. Bullets hissed past as I slid across the floor, catching his arm before he collapsed. His weight hit me like a wall, heavier than I expected, solid muscle dragging us both down. "Move," I hissed, dragging him toward the shadows. His breath came rough, sharp with pain. "You should go." "Shut up," I snapped, hauling him behind a stack of crates. My hands pressed against the wound, hot blood slicking my fingers. "Don't you dare bleed out on me." His eyes met mine, sharp even through the haze. Why? The question lodged in my chest like a second bullet. Why? Because I couldn't leave him, even when logic told me I should. Because somewhere between the chases and the taunts, he'd stopped being just the hunter. I swallowed hard, throat tight. "I should have left you," I muttered, voice barely audible over the chaos outside. But I couldn't. The words tasted like confession. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Whoever was shooting backed off, melting into the dark before law enforcement could arrive. The warehouse settled into an uneasy silence, broken only by Dane's ragged breathing. I tightened my grip around his shoulders, forcing him upright. "Come on, soldier. You're not dying in some rat hole with me." Step by step, I dragged him through the back exit, out into the night air. The city lights shimmered far off, indifferent to the blood staining my hands. For once, I wasn't running for freedom. I was running for him. Dragging him up 3 flights of stairs nearly killed me before the wound did him. By the time I shoved the door to my apartment open, my arms ached, my lungs burned, and his weight leaned so heavily against me I thought we'd both collapse right there in the hall. Inside, the place looked nothing like the cold warehouses and rooftops we'd crossed. It was small, tucked between crumbling brick buildings, hidden enough that nobody would think to look. The walls were lined with mismatched shelves, stuffed with dog-eared books and scavenged trinkets. A faded quilt draped over the couch. 2 mugs sat abandoned on the counter from some morning I couldn't remember. My den, my only corner of the world that felt mine. Dane sagged against the couch as I guided him down, his breath rough, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. Blood still seeped through his shirt, dark and thick. "Hold still," I muttered, yanking open the cabinet where I kept a half-assed first aid kit. Alcohol, gauze, a needle and thread that wasn't meant for flesh but would have to do. He gave me that look even through the pain. Steady, assessing. "This doesn't look like the hideout of someone always on the run." I snorted, tearing at his shirt to bare the wound. "Sorry, it's not the sterile lab you're used to. Try not to die before you finish critiquing my interior design." A sound escaped him, half chuckle, half groan. I pressed gauze hard against the wound. He flinched, but didn't cry out. Typical soldier. "You're lucky the bullet missed anything vital. Or unlucky, depending on how you see being patched up by me. You're better than most medics I've had," he said quietly. The words pulled at me in ways I didn't want to admit. My hands worked automatically. Alcohol sting, clean the wound, thread the needle. I bent close, stitching his skin with quick, practiced motions, pretending my heartbeat wasn't thundering in my ears. Every now and then, his gaze flicked around the room, books stacked by the window. The chipped mug with a cartoon wolf on it, the blanket crumpled in the corner. He was seeing pieces of me no one else had. Not the fugitive, not the experiment, just Kyle. When I tied off the last stitch, I sat back with a sigh, wiping sweat from my brow. "There. Don't move too much or you'll undo my hard work." His voice came softer this time. "Why risk it? You could have left me." I froze, the bloody gauze still in my hand. My throat worked before words came. I thought if I ever let myself get caught, I'd disappear, vanish into whatever cage they built for me. But with you, my eyes flicked to his, the truth too sharp to swallow. For the first time, I wanted to stay. The room went still, no gunfire, no footsteps pounding after me, just the hum of the fridge and our breathing, tangled in the space between us. He didn't reach for me, didn't push, just watched with those steady eyes, the weight of them almost too much. I busied my hands, pulling the quilt from the couch and throwing it over him. "Don't get any ideas." "This doesn't mean I like you." "Of course not," he said, a hint of something almost like a smile in his tone. "You just stitched me up, dragged me halfway across the city, and risked your life for me out of pure spite." I rolled my eyes, sinking into the armchair opposite him, but the heat in my chest betrayed me. The silence that followed wasn't the suffocating kind. It was fragile, tentative, like a thread stretched between us. Not trust, not yet, but something close enough to make my hands tremble. "Slow burn," I reminded myself. "Don't let him too close, don't let him touch." And yet, sitting there in the glow of the lamp, watching him drift into an uneasy sleep under my quilt, I wasn't sure who had trapped who anymore. Nora's apartment was cluttered the way only hackers' lairs could be, wires everywhere, glowing monitors casting. The room in shifting blues and greens, half-eaten takeout cartons, balanced on stacks of old equipment. The hum of machines drowned out the city outside, as if this space lived in its own universe. She didn't look up when I came in, just jabbed a thumb toward the screens. "They're closing in, Kyle. 2 more sweeps in your district this week. If I can see their grid, you can bet they're seeing you." My stomach tightened. I tried for a grin anyway. "Relax. I've been dancing circles around them for months." Finally, she turned, glasses reflecting lines of code. "Not like this. They've upgraded. New scanners, tighter patrols. You're not dealing with rookies anymore. And rumor has it," her voice lowered, heavy, "they're planning a full extraction op. Soon." The room seemed smaller suddenly, air heavier. My pulse picked up, not with the thrill of the chase, but with something colder. I rubbed at my wrist, the scar there burning like memory. "I told you," she added, softer. "Making this a game doesn't change the rules they play by." Across the city, glass and steel cut the skyline where the corporation's headquarters loomed. In a conference room that smelled of polish and order, Dane stood at attention, his hands clasped behind his back. The director's voice was crisp, merciless. "The fugitive is destabilizing containment protocols. He must be retrieved immediately. Tomorrow night we deploy a capture unit." Dane's jaw worked, but he kept his voice even. "You want him alive?" "Correct. Yes. But effective immediately. If resistance jeopardizes the unit, we will authorize escalation." The word hung heavy, escalation, which meant lethal force. Something in Dane's chest twisted. He kept his face impassive, but behind his eyes the memory of Kyle at the window burned. The defiance, the fire, the fragility he tried so hard to mask. Not an object, not just an experiment, a person. "Understood," Dane said, though the word tasted like ash. That night, I walked the streets, hood pulled low, hands shoved deep in my pockets. The city pulsed around me, neon signs bleeding into puddles on the pavement. I should have felt the usual rush of freedom, every step a reminder I wasn't locked in their cages anymore. But my chest was tight, every sound of boots on the sidewalk making me glance over my shoulder. Nora's warning echoed in my skull. They're closing in. I thought of Dane, his steady gaze, the way he hadn't tried to chain me when he had the chance. Every instinct screamed at me to run again, to disappear before the net fell. That was survival. That was what I'd always done. And yet, I found myself standing still on a quiet corner, staring at the glow of the skyline. What if I didn't run? What if I stayed? The thought was madness, dangerous, but the warmth in my chest betrayed me. An ember I hadn't felt in years, something I didn't have a name for. Back in their tower, Dane watched the mission briefing dissolve into silence. His colleagues filed out, but he stayed rooted in place, staring at the map on the screen where a blinking red dot marked Kyle's last trace. His orders were clear. His path was not. The fracture had begun. Inside me, inside him, inside the hunt itself. And I knew with a cold certainty that tomorrow night everything would break. The storefront window gleamed like a mirror in the night, polished and bright against the dark street. Behind it, mannequins in formal suits stood frozen in poses they'd never chosen. And there he was, Dane, not chasing this time, not storming forward, just standing on the other side of the glass, his reflection layered over mine. His eyes caught mine through the pane, and for a moment it felt like the world had shrunk to the width of that fragile barrier. My breath misted against the glass as I stepped closer. He didn't move. We were two halves of the same image, predator and prey blurred until I couldn't tell who was which. "You still think this is a hunt?" I asked, voice low, the glass carrying my words like a secret. His gaze didn't waver. "I think it started that way." A pause. Heavy as a heartbeat. "I'm not sure what it is now." My chest tightened. I wanted to laugh, to taunt him like always. But the words wouldn't come. All I could feel was the quiet weight of honesty pressing in. "If you're not the hunter," I whispered, "then what are you?" His mouth curved, not into a smile, but something close. "Maybe the one who stays." Something in me jolted, sharp and aching. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, mouth set as though I could stop the quake inside. And then, like fate's cruelest timing, the familiar rasp of an old woman's voice drifted from the sidewalk. "Well, well. Finally standing still, are we?" I startled, glancing down. The cafe owner leaned on her broom, amusement twinkling in her wrinkled eyes. She tilted her head, looking from me to Dane through the glass. "You've been running circles around each other for weeks," she said, voice firm with certainty. "So, tell me, when's the wedding?" Heat rushed to my face. My instinct screamed to throw back some sarcastic remark, to laugh it off like I always did. But the words stuck, because for the first time it didn't sound ridiculous. It sounded possible. My throat worked, but no sound came. I turned back toward the glass. Toward him. Dane's expression didn't change. Steady, calm, but there was something in his eyes I hadn't let myself name until now. Not command. Not troll. Something quieter. Something I'd almost forgotten could exist. For once, I didn't laugh. I just stood there, staring at him through the glass, wondering if the old woman had seen the truth before either of us dared to. The corporation's headquarters rose into the night like a blade of glass, slicing the sky in two. Floodlights washed the building's edges in harsh white, and the hum of drones filled the air, restless and sharp. They wanted me to feel small when I walked in. Instead, I kept my chin high, every step deliberate, the echo of my boots on the marble floor loud enough to sound like defiance. I wasn't dragged here. I wasn't caught. I came on my own. Because tonight, I was done running. Dane stood a pace behind me, silent, rigid as ever. His presence at my back should have felt like a cage. Instead, it was the only reason my knees didn't buckle. The director's voice cut across the cavernous lobby like a knife. You've made this more complicated than it needed to be. But you're here, and now we can finish what we started. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You didn't start me. You tried to build me. There's a difference. Her eyes narrowed. You're not a man, Kyle. You're property. Before I could speak, Dane stepped forward, his voice low but resonant enough to silence the room. No. He isn't. Every head turned toward him. His uniform, his record, his reputation. He was the corporation's perfect soldier. And now, in one breath, he was breaking himself free. The director's face hardened. Careful, Dane. You're one word away from treason. He didn't flinch. Then consider this word my resignation. Gasps rippled through the room. Guards shifted uneasily, hands hovering near weapons. I felt the weight of every eye on me. Waiting, watching. My heart pounded. But for once it wasn't with the rhythm of flight. It was something heavier, something steadier. I stepped forward, placing myself at the center of the room. My voice rang out, louder than I thought possible. I'm not an object, not an experiment, not your property. I'm a person. The words echoed off the glass walls, sharp enough to cut. My hands trembled, but I didn't lower them. You tried to erase me, to turn me into something you could own, but you failed. I'm still here. And I'll never belong to you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then the director hissed. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, forcing a grin that carried every ounce of defiance left in me. But at least the regret will be mine. Not yours. Behind me, Dane moved to my side. Not as my captor, not as my hunter, as my choice. His arm brushed mine. Steady, unshakable. The tension snapped. Guards surged forward, but Dane's glare froze them in place. You move, he warned, voice like steel, and you'll find out exactly how replaceable you are. The director's lips pressed into a thin line. She knew what she was losing tonight. Her best soldier, her most successful experiment. And she hated it. But she couldn't stop it. We turned together, Dane and I, and walked out under the weight of every furious stare. My steps felt heavier than ever, but also lighter, as though the chains around my chest had finally shattered. Outside, the night air hit cold and clean. We climbed to the roof, where the city stretched endlessly below us, messy, alive, free. Dane stood beside me, silent for a long moment, before finally speaking. So, what now? I breathed deep, the first true breath I'd taken in years. Now? I said softly. Now we live. The floodlights blazed behind us, but ahead the city glittered, waiting. And for once, I wasn't afraid to walk into it. The new apartment wasn't much. Bare walls, secondhand furniture, sunlight, spilling through windows that rattled when the wind picked up. But it was ours. The air smelled of fresh paint and coffee, not bleach or blood. Bookshelves leaned precariously in the corner, already stuffed with volumes Dane insisted we'd borrowed permanently. A mismatched collection of mugs cluttered the kitchen counter. One quilt, the same one that had covered him the night I stitched him back together, draped across the couch like a claim. I sat on the floor by the window, knees drawn up, watching the sunset bleed orange and pink across the skyline. For once, the city didn't look like a battlefield. It looked like possibility. Behind me, Dane's footsteps were steady, unhurried. He carried a box in one arm, setting it down with a grunt. "You sure about this?" he asked, voice low, but there was no mistaking the thread of amusement woven through. I smirked. What, settling down? Collecting mugs like a normal person? Terrifying, I know. He gave me a look. That soldier's gaze softened at the edges. Not just that. I mean bringing others in. My chest tightened. We'd talked about it for days, about the ones like me, the ones who'd been broken down and told they were property, about finding them, giving them a place, a pack. "I'm sure," I said finally. "I'm done being the exception. If there are others like me, they deserve more than cages and experiments. They deserve a home, a family." Dane leaned against the window frame, arms crossed, the light painting his face in gold. "Then we'll make one." The word settled over me like a vow. I laughed, softer than I meant to. "Look at us. From cat and mouse to community leaders. Bet the old lady at the cafe is already planning the wedding." That earned the rarest thing from him, a real smile. She's probably right. Silence stretched. But it wasn't heavy. It was easy, filled with the hum of the city and the warmth of being here, together. I turned back toward the glass, watching my reflection blur into his beside me. For so long, mirrors and windows had shown me only a fugitive, a shadow of something broken. Now they showed something else. Someone whole. I breathed deep, the weight of running finally gone. This time, I whispered, more to myself than him, I didn't run. This time I chose to stay,